The mighty Columbia River carves its way through the Cascade Mountains of the Pacific Northwest as it fashions much of the boundary between Oregon and Washington state. The Columbia River Gorge is rich in scenery, from snow-capped mountains to magnificent waterfalls. And for those of us with an appreciation for trains, the Gorge is rich in something else. Two of the biggest railroads in America roll right through the Gorge. On the Washington side, BNSF Railway's Fall Bridge Subdivision is always humming with activity. While in Oregon, the rails of Union Pacific's Portland sub are polished by a great variety of trains. In part one of our two-part series covering the Columbia River Gorge, we will tour Union Pacific's line between Portland and Hinkle. See UP's mighty SD90 MACs pounding the rails with 130-car potash trains. ES45 ACs on the point of long double-stack trains. Vintage Jeeps in local service, and much more, all in the spectacular setting of the Columbia River Gorge. Join us now for Columbia River Gorge Part 1, Union Pacific's Portland Subdivision. Union Pacific's route through the Columbia River Gorge is located in the state of Oregon. Traversed by the Lewis and Clark expedition in the early 1800s, this is by far the easiest crossing of the Cascade Mountain Range, with gentle grades of usually less than 0.5%. We will be viewing the line west to east, between East Portland, milepost 0.0, and the west end of Hinkle Yard, near mile 183. Mount Hood rises stately over the skyline of Portland, Oregon, the starting point for our tour of the Columbia River Gorge. Back in 1851, the city of Portland consisted of around 800 people, a steam sawmill, log cabin motel, and a newspaper. Built near the confluence of the Willamette and Columbia Rivers, this inland port is ideal for marine traffic, as well as rail, benefiting several industries including steel and grain. Portland is the largest shipper of wheat in the U.S. and the second largest port for wheat in the world. Both Union Pacific and BNSF Railway have yards here, and the competition for rail service is great. A familiar landmark in the city is Portland's Union Station, which was built by the Northern Pacific Terminal Company in 1896. Located along the west shore of the Willamette, the station serves as a transportation hub, including Amtrak, Greyhound, and Max Light Rail. A pair of light engines roll past the passenger platforms on their way to nearby Lake Yard, which is jointly operated by UP and BNSF. Just east of Union Station, the UP crosses the Willamette River on a steel drawbridge. Looking across the river, a pair of GP38-2s lead a string of double-stack containers south out of UP's Albina Yard. The local is bound for Union Pacific's intermodal facility at Brooklyn Yard, located just a few miles to the south. The train disappears behind a cargo ship, which was docked here during the night. As twilight of a new day dawns in the city, a Max Light Rail commuter train crosses the upper deck of the steel bridge. Built in 1912 by the Union Pacific and Oregon Railway and Navigation Company, it is the second oldest vertical lift bridge in North America after the nearby Hawthorne Bridge, and the only double-deck bridge with independent lifts in the world. The operator's house is located on the top of the upper lift. The rear of the stack train disappears behind the cargo ship as it rolls through East Portland. Besides UP traffic, several Amtrak trains use the steel bridge on a daily basis, including the north and southbound Coast Starlight running between Los Angeles and Seattle, and the Amtrak Cascades with their unique Talgo train sets. Amtrak 500 heads north over the bridge as it prepares to make a stop at Union Station. This train operates daily between Eugene, Oregon and Seattle, Washington. At the east end of the steel bridge is a junction known as East Portland. UP 4198 West has just come off the Graham Line, linking East Portland with Troutdale. The train is finishing its run through the Columbia River Gorge from Hinkle, and soon the crew will tie up at Albina Yard. Before continuing east, let's take a quick look at Albina Yard. A giant Union Pacific smokestack towers above the locomotive shop and service facility, which is located at the south end of the 200-acre yard. From a higher vantage point at Overlook Park, we can see the shop with the Fremont Bridge as a backdrop. A switch crew goes about their duties, while an eastbound stack train slowly works its way out of the yard. Several trains originate and terminate at Albina from other major UP hubs such as Roseville, Hinkle, and other destinations. Albina sees plenty of run-through traffic, dominated mostly by double-stack trains rolling between the western ports of Seattle and Tacoma, and intermodal hubs in and around Chicago. All in all, Albina Yard is a busy place. The Portland Subdivision consists of two different routes through Portland. The Graham Line picks up at East Portland and makes a fairly straight shot through the city for 15.6 miles to Troutdale. The Kenton Line heads north through Albina Yard to St. John's Junction, then through the Peninsula Tunnel to Peninsula Junction. Then it turns east and rolls through Kenton, meeting the Graham Line again at Troutdale, milepost K22.0. UP 4858 West rolls through Troutdale with a mixed manifest. It will be taking the Graham Line to Albina Yard. As the train continues on the Graham line, we can see the Kenton line disappearing off to the right. On a foggy November morning, an old train order signal stands erect near a retired caboose. The railroad depot was purchased by the city of Troutdale from the UP for $1 in 1976 and has been restored. Taking a stroll behind the depot, we can just make out a high green through the fog. Back in Omaha, Nebraska, UP Dispatcher 1 has lined a pair of eastbounds out of Portland for Hinkle. The first is a QRVHK led by UP 5453 with 88 cars out of Roseville, California. The train picks up speed as it crosses the Sandy River on a through-truss bridge. Moving down to the banks of the Sandy, we are in time to watch a pair of SD90 43 MACs leading eastbound grain empties over the river. As soon as eastbounds cross the Sandy River, they pass the 10,600-foot siding of Sandy. Two more SD90 43 MACs are in charge of a westbound potash train. Built in 1998 by the Electromotive Division of General Motors, these units never saw the 6,000 horsepower prime mover they were designed for. Still, with their 4,300 horsepower rating, they have enjoyed a long career on the UP. Measuring 80 feet 2 inches in length and weighing over 415,000 pounds, the SD90 43 AC, as UP calls them, are still a sight to behold. The covered hoppers belong to Canpotex and are part of a specialized fleet of over 5,000 rail cars designed for hauling potash, which is used in fertilizer. This train is symboled the OEOT5. It originated at Kingsgate, BC, where the Canadian Pacific interchanges trains to the UP and is bound for Portland. Westbound potash trains often have 130 cars or more and can weigh over 19,000 tons. The Columbia River Gorge opens up before us just east of Sandy. A prominent landmark in the gorge is Crown Point, which rises 733 feet above the river and the railroad. A scenic highlight among the historic Columbia River Highway, Crown Point offers a panoramic view of the surroundings. The Vista House was completed in 1918 as a scenic stop for travelers along the old highway and serves as a memorial to the Oregon pioneers. Today, the panoramic view from the Vista House has been hampered by low clouds and rain, a common occurrence in the Pacific Northwest. Right below us is the UP Main Line, which follows along the marshy banks of Young's Creek for a short distance. These Canadian honkers have found this to be an enjoyable locale. Because of the surrounding foliage, it is often easier to hear trains than to see them. A westbound passes below Crown Point on its way to Seattle. The Columbia River Gorge is federally protected as a National Scenic Area and is managed by the U.S. Forest Service. The Oregon side is accessed by Interstate 84, as well as a few sections of Old Highway 30, known as the historic Columbia River Highway. UP's Portland Subdivision parallels the interstate most of the way up the gorge. We are looking down from a scenic overlook at Bridal Veil. From our high vantage point, a westbound manifest rolls over the west switch at control point CPS 026, the west end of the siding at Bridal Veil. The rear of the train passes under the 120-foot tall Pillars of Hercules as it continues west toward Sandy. Here is the same location from track level, as UP 8131 East leads 88 grain empties beneath the giant pillars of basalt rock and deeper into the gorge. We are just west of Multnomah Falls as a Portland-bound manifest makes a brief appearance through the trees at the base of Larch Mountain. The train continues west between Dodson and Bridal Veil as fog slowly rises upward through forest and rock, a hallmark of the Pacific Northwest. Below all of this, along the rail, UP 3835 West is leading a double-stack train through a mixture of maple, oak, and cottonwoods near milepost 29. It's the 5th day of November 2011. Although the sun is hidden behind the clouds and a light rain falls, we find a nice autumn scene under the forest canopy near Rowena Falls. Water flows eagerly over rocks and pebbles as it seeks to join the mighty Columbia. And then the Pacific Ocean. We return to the same location in June. This time an eastbound autorack train led by UP 7675 races through the woods on the 50-mile-per-hour track. near milepost 30 on the Portland Subdivision, is one of the highlights of the Columbia River Gorge, Multnomah Falls. With a height of 620 feet, it is the tallest in Oregon and arguably the second highest year-round waterfall in the U.S. Underground springs from Larch Mountain, mixed with rain and spring snowmelt, provide a constant water source for the falls. Attracting 2.5 million visitors per year, Multnomah Falls is Oregon's #1 most visited natural attraction. The Multnomah Falls Park was dedicated in 1915, and a Cascadian-style stone lodge was constructed in 1925. Resembling a Thomas Kinkade painting, the lodge is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. A footpath to the falls leads under the UP main line, where a wooden sign lets us know where we are in the world. Continuing east at milepost 32, UP 3820 West leads another mixed manifest under the massive rock tower known as St. Peter's Dome. The Columbia River remains hidden behind a band of trees at Dodson, while the forested hills of Washington state reach up to touch the clouds. It is possible this view may look the same as it did when the Lewis and Clark expedition explored these parts in the early 1800s. We are brought back to the 21st century by the sound of an approaching stack train. Dodson is a 10,617-foot siding. We are set up near the east switch at milepost 34.5 as UP 7891 West leads a Z train past our location. Continuing east to Bonneville, near milepost 38.5, we catch a westbound 70-car ballast train running 3x2. These Herzog cars can dump railroad ballast remotely using GPS technology via 13 satellites and a computer on board the locomotive. This eliminates the need for ground personnel during the dumping process. Ballast can be dumped at speeds of up to 20 miles per hour with this system. Bonneville is named for the nearby Bonneville Dam, which stretches 2,690 feet across the Columbia River. Originally completed in 1937 by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the dam provides flood control, hydroelectricity, as well as river navigation. The Bonneville Power Station produces 1,189 megawatts of electricity. One of the original turbines is on display near the Visitors Center, weighing in at 123 tons and rated for 74,000 horsepower. This one turbine ran for nearly 60 years, producing over 22 billion kilowatt hours of electricity. As the train passes, the tug Wallace Ease engine is heard as it tows the barges toward Cascade Locks. River barges are a common sight, servicing ports up and down the Columbia and Snake Rivers. 4 miles east of Bonneville is Cascade Locks. The impressive Bridge of the Gods spans the Columbia, connecting Oregon and Washington state. Another barge is spotted heading downstream and passing under the 1,856-foot toll bridge. This barge and tug belong to Foss Maritime. The company started back in the 1800s with a single rowboat and has since grown into the largest tug and towing company on the West Coast, with 90 tugs and barges. The tow is carefully navigated through the majestic scenery of the Columbia River Gorge. Returning our attention to the rails, another pair of SD90 43 MACs lead a 127-car Kingsgate to Portland potash train on the main at Cascade Locks. The next morning, UP 7707 East leads a heavy manifest train over the west switch at Cascade Locks in a meet with a westbound. Remote-controlled DPU passes, revealing the UP 5290 in the 6,751-foot siding. This is the Herzog ballast train we saw earlier at Bonneville. It was in the hole at Cascade Locks for a couple of eastbounds. On a different day, a westbound grain train is spotted at Cascade Locks behind a GE C44AC number 6511 and a C44/60AC number 7022. A third C44AC CTE brings up the rear. Near Viento State Park, milepost 55, a westbound Beartable train is seen in the last moments of sunlight behind two EMD SD90Ms. From our location, we can peer across the Columbia River to the Washington side as an eastbound BNSF empty grain train heads toward Pasco on the Fallbridge Subdivision. We get another opportunity to view the gorge from Mitchell Point Overlook, located just west of Hood River. UP 7757 heads east with a stack train, paralleling the river and Interstate 84 at Meno. Competing train traffic is plainly seen on the opposite side of the river. Another westbound BNSF grain train parallels Highway 14 on its way to Vancouver, Washington. On the Oregon side, a westbound UP stack train clicks off the miles below Ruthven Point. The 11,240-foot peak of Mount Hood, Oregon's tallest volcano, rises stately over the community of Hood River. A toll bridge connects Oregon to Washington State, where one can get a great view of the town, as well as the mountain. Trackside, UP 8131 East leads a grain train over the Hood River via a through-truss bridge. UP 7757 East is seen again rolling through the curves east of Hood River. The mixture of deciduous and evergreen trees in the Columbia River Gorge is striking this time of year. As we continue east, the landscape will start to change. Trees will thin, allowing the formations of rock to dominate the scene, creating magnificent backdrops for trains to run through. The stack train continues east and will soon meet a westbound grain train at Mosier. Moving around the curve near milepost 67, we are in time to catch the westbound grainer led by UP 5638 as it rolls through Tunnel 2. UP 7698 East heads toward Mosier on the 15th day of June 2011. The sun sets as another day of rail fanning comes to an end. On a sunny fall afternoon at Mosier, we catch a UP local out of the Dalles as it heads to a lumber mill at Cascade Locks with a string of center beam cars. Between Mosier and Rowena, the UP crosses a pier that separates the Columbia River from McClure Lake. UP 4764 West leads a 103-car manifest past the small lake at milepost 73. The empty grain train we last saw at Hood River is in the hole at Mosier for this train. We reposition our camera near the east end of McClure Lake in time to catch the UP 8131 East as it crosses the pier. A westbound grain train passes station sign Rowena. A Hinkle to Barnes Portland vehicle train passes the same location. Signal 828 at West the Dalles guards the eastbound track. The Portland Subdivision is double-tracked for a 22-mile segment between Crates, just west of here, and Biggs. Eastbound trains diverge onto Main 2, while westbounds remain on the north number 1 track. UP 5413 East leads a Hinkle-bound manifest past our location on Main 2 as it enters the Dalles. Standing over 260 feet, with a length of over 8,800 feet, the Dalles Dam is an impressive structure across the Columbia River, producing 1,779.8 megawatts of electricity. The dam is located near the east end of town and was completed in 1957. The Dalles is home to Ameritise West, which makes railroad ties, and the Union Pacific has a yard here. It is also an inland port for barge traffic up and down the Columbia River. The Ameritise West tie treatment plant has been in operation in the Dalles since 1922 and is the primary supplier of wood ties to the UP. Here we can see gondolas being loaded with an order of fresh ties, which come in varying lengths depending on whether they are needed for single track or switches, crossovers, and the like. To some of us, there's nothing like the smell of fresh railroad ties, something that is lost on the concrete variety. Looking about the yard, we can clearly see the difference between the treated and untreated ties. UP 5476 West leads a heavy QHKRV consisting mostly of grain hoppers through the Dalles. This train originates in Hinkle and is bound for Roseville, California. It rolls past the tie plant and several reefer cars mothballed at the Dalles. We continue east into the Gorge between the Dalles and Oregon Trunk Junction. UP 7708 approaches with a K-line double-stack train on Main 2. Milepost 94.9 marks Oregon Trunk Junction. It is here that the UP Portland sub connects to BNSF Railway's Oregon Trunk Line, which follows the Deschutes River south through Bend. Here you can see the connector track taking off to the right under the I-84 overpass. UP 4450 West slowly rolls through the crossovers located near the junction. The train was running wrong way on Main 2 due to track maintenance near Biggs. A quartet of SD90 43 MACs are on the point of a 131-car empty potash train as it ducks under the BNSF at Oregon Trunk Junction. Oregon Trunk Junction is a location of the Celilo Drawbridge, where BNSF Railway's Oregon Trunk Subdivision crosses over the Columbia River. Since maritime traffic has the right-of-way over trains, the drawbridge remains up. When a train approaches, a bridge tender in Pasco, Washington lowers the bridge if the channel is clear. BNSF 750 North leads an Oakland to Tacoma bare table train over the bridge at the restricted speed of 10 miles per hour. Due to congestion on the busy Fall Bridge sub, the train must wait on the bridge for a clear signal before proceeding to the crew change point on the Washington side. Jumping across the river above Wishram, Washington, we get a great view of an eastbound ducking under I-84 in a meet with a westbound at Celilo. Back on the UP main line, a westbound grain train led by UP 7814 rolls over the Deschutes River on Main 1 west of Biggs. Just above the train is Tunnel 1 on BNSF Railway's Oregon Trunk Subdivision, which runs south through the Deschutes River Canyon on the inside gateway. A Coast Guard ship heads upriver passing ancient basalt flows on the Washington side of the gorge near Biggs Junction. Meanwhile, on the rail, a westbound stack train approaches milepost 101, having just entered the double-track section of the railroad. At control point CPS 103, double track ends. UP 7705 East takes a stack train past grain elevators at Biggs. UP 5255 screams by the camera in DPU mode as this stack train makes good time on its eastward journey through the gorge. From high upon a ridge in Washington, we look down on Biggs and the lights of hundreds of wind turbines that have sprung up in recent years. From our high vantage point, we can see the community of Biggs Junction, which consists of a truck stop and motel. It is also an important wheat shipping point for local farmers, with grain storage elevators and facilities for shipping wheat both by rail and river barge. It's early morning at Biggs Junction. The westbound Amtrak Empire Builder passes silently behind the grain silos at Mary Hill over on the BNSF. Soon another westbound approaches. This time it's the UP 7903 with a manifest bound for Portland. The 7903 appears to have suffered an engine fire recently. Mid-afternoon at Biggs Junction finds a strong breeze blowing in from the west, not uncommon in the Columbia River Gorge. The steady breeze continues into the late afternoon as we move down to the banks of the river. A pair of grain barges are anchored nearby to be filled from the silos when needed. Westbound tows also do battle with wind as they work downriver. We watch as a tidewater barge passes under the Sam Hill Memorial Bridge, with wind-blown waves breaking against its bow. When rail fanning in the gorge, one can find the competing river traffic an interesting distraction if no trains are running. The evening sun prepares to disappear behind Mount Hood, marking the end of another day of rail fanning. On a sunny morning in June, an eastbound double-stack train makes its way below giant formations of rock, marking the northern tip of Oregon. Rufus is mileboard 108.7. The block signal near mile marker 110 lights up with a high green as an eastbound autorack train makes its way into the night. A rickety tribal fishing platform extends into the dark waters of the Columbia, just a little downstream from the mighty John Day Dam. Completed in 1971, the John Day Dam has 20 spillway gates and is over 7,000 feet long. The powerhouse produces 2,160 megawatts of electricity. It is located near the 10,795-foot siding of Goff, milepost 111.5. An eastbound K-line double-stack train passes the dam in a meet with a westbound manifest. Slowly rolling up toward the west switch, The UP 4680 takes a green and heads into the evening sun. Just east of Goff, trains cross the John Day River on a double span through truss bridge. We are set up along the south bank of Lake Umatilla, formed by the backwater of the John Day Dam. While waiting for our next train, a thick layer of fog rolls in, creating a different mood in the gorge. UP 5455 East punches through the fog at East Goff. As the rear of the train rolls over the bridge, cloaked by the fog, we continue east. Trains roll through another cut in the lava between the sidings of Goff and Quinton. UP 4450 heads west on a cold February morning. More wind turbines populate the horizon as we continue up the gorge. UP 5139 West is in charge of a Gillum, Oregon to Seattle garbage train. It is working a yellow block as Omaha Dispatcher 251 has set up a meet at Quinton, just west of here. Soon, UP 8133 East passes our location with an assortment of cars bound for Hinkle. It becomes evident that trains running through the Columbia River Gorge are swallowed up by the sheer size of their surroundings. Positioned near milepost 129 at Blalock, another bright red K-line stack train is dwarfed by mighty walls of rock as it approaches from the west on the 70-mile-per-hour track. Right on the heels of the K-line train, UP 5487 East screams by our location with more double stacks. we find another grain storage elevator and marina at a place originally called Alkali, but later changed to Arlington. An icy breeze is blowing through the gorge this morning, reminding us that this is, in fact, November. Headlights appear in the west as our next train approaches. Led by UP 4982, this is another waste management garbage train headed for a landfill at Gillum. The train is symboled the USEGL and is nicknamed the Seagull. Due to the low angle of the sun, the train approaches literally in the state of Oregon's shadow. The crew of the 4982 will tie up for the day in the siding of Arlington. A local crew will later take the train to the landfill. UP 4680 West highballs through Heppner Junction near milepost 147. Just behind the camera, the railroad enters a wide cut in the basalt rock as it maintains a virtually level grade. UP 4003 East leads 3 other EMDs, including an SD60M wide cab, on the point of a stack train through Heppner Junction. Heppner Junction is located at the mouth of Willow Creek, where UP once ran into the city of Heppner. The branch line was removed in 1994, and the junction is now used for storing unneeded cars. 2 more 90 MACs, the 8273 and 8263, are on the point of an empty Canadian grain train as it heads for Hinkle. After leaving Heppner Junction, the railroad slowly begins to separate from the river it has followed for the past 150 miles. West of Castle, UP 8548 is found on the point of a very short autorack train with just 6 cars. As the train heads down into the gorge, we turn east to Boardman, home of the Port of Morrow, Oregon's second largest port. Just off the main line, logs are sorted at the Boardman Ship Company, which processes and reloads wood chips for transport via river barge. An eastbound stack train led by a brand new ES45AC CTE, the UP 7524, slows for congestion ahead as trains filter in and out of Hinkle Yard, which is still 20 miles to the east. A chip truck is being dumped at the reload facility and momentarily appears over the double stacks as the train rolls by. Just 10 miles west of Hinkle, the UP 1241 local heads to Boardman to do some work. We catch the train between the sidings of Clark and Munley as it passes mile marker 172. The train glides down a gentle 0.6% grade. A few hours later, the 1241 local is seen again as it arrives at Hinkle just after sunset. Another grain train heads west for a night run through the gorge to Portland, as we are treated to an eastern Oregon sunset, the perfect way to wrap up our last day in the Columbia River Gorge. Our final train arrives at the west end of Hinkle Yard as UP 8651 East knocks the signal down near milepost 183. After a crew change, this K-Line train will continue east over Oregon's Blue Mountains to La Grande and on to Idaho and beyond. The subject of another program from 7 Idea Productions. We hope you have enjoyed this look at Union Pacific's route through the scenic Columbia River Gorge, where countless trains have polished the rails for the past 130 years. Thanks for watching.